Girls of Reddit, what are the most common reasons behind why guys didn't make it past the first date with you? For more infotainment, subscribe to our channel and press the bell icon to get new video updates. Thanks for watching. Within the first few minutes, this guy told me that he was living out of his car because his ex-girlfriend was a stalker. Come to find out, his ex was crazy because they were still dating, and while she was at work one day he decided to move all of his stuff out of their apartment unannounced. This day happened to be the same day that we went on a date. What a guy. Turns out he had a few dates lined up that day though. One guy I did date a while, casual thing, started claiming he thought he was falling in love with me. I was completely baffled because he literally didn't listen to me and would frequently talk right over me without even acknowledging I'd changed the subject. I wasn't in it to make a serious connection, so this was fine until he started talking about love, and then I found it extremely annoying. I don't think he even listened when I told him I was not and would never fall in love with him. Obviously I ended things pretty soon after that. I think he was falling in love with someone being an audience to his rambling, who happened to be female. Honestly, I feel that way about the vast majority of men who have been interested in me. It wasn't really about me at all. Creepy desperation. For example, he told me that he's never been in love before and is just waiting for that special lady, because he doesn't want anything to do with those in bars with tattoos on their lower backs. He thought I might be really special and might help to pull him out of the depression he's been in for a long time, because he's never got past the second date with any girl and is still uncomfortably long gazing right at me here. This really happened. Bringing the conversation back to every single time I'd ask about what he did for work, he'd tell me, then ask if I owned. I would ask where he went to school. He'd ask if I minded if guys didn't wear. I'd ask what he does for a hobby. He'd ask if I'm open to focusing on my looks to a really uncomfortable degree. I don't mind a compliment, but one guy actually checked to see if I have all my teeth, and noticed an abrasion on my arm from work and asked him, "Is that permanent?" I said, "No, it was just a scrape," and tried to move the conversation to something else, and he started to ask if I've ever modeled, and what sort of modeling, and do I have photos with me? There's a person in here, buddy. I'm not livestock you're thinking about purchasing. Condescension and bad hygiene. While not common, I have to note that one also tried to guess my cup size over dinner on a first date. Edit. He did not guess correctly. He guessed far too big. I am properly fitted for my bra, as per multiple pro fittings. Pencil test in Portland has been my favorite. He was just either really wrong or making a severely misguided attempt at flattery. Had he guessed correctly, it would still have been creepy for a first date, and I still wouldn't have seen him again. He whipped this guess out before the food even showed up on a blind date. Definitely no. Went on a pre-date/coffee date with this guy I met on a dating app. He seemed fine as we shared the same interest and worked in the same field. Asked me out to dinner as our coffee date ended up around 6 p.m. so I said sure. Moment we stepped out of the coffee shop, things went from 0 to 100 real fast. Started saying, "Why do girls want expensive restaurant like these?" Starts pointing at every resto we passed by. I haven't suggested a place where to eat. Started cussing profoundly as we were walking. He was super polite when we had coffee but became a real jerk. I noticed he was a penny pincher, which he admitted. So I chose to eat at a taco stand and we go Dutch. I spent $6 on my shrimp taco and he spent $7.50 on his fish ones. Didn't order drinks. Totally flipped why mine is $1 cheaper than his. Pretty much bummed about it on our awkward dinner. I also found out at this point he hasn't had a GF since he was 16/17. He's 32 now. Walked him to the train station. Said goodbye, shook his hand and never looked back. First time I ever ghosted anyone. I have an art degree in jewelry design and metalsmithing. Went on a date with a guy that knew I went to art school, but didn't bother to ask my major and assumed I was a painter. He just kept talking about paintings, trying to impress me. On and on and on. I eventually was like, you know I'm a professional jeweler, right? And he was totally surprised, but then launched into some tale about how his sister makes beaded jewelry to sell on Etsy, and that he was surprised I would get a degree in that. I had to explain that I was an actual certified jeweler that worked in precious metals and stones. He didn't really talk much after that. I met a guy during a pickup soccer game. While not wildly competitive, everyone there knew what they were doing and had definitely played at a higher level before. On the date, we go to a bar and a game is on, so we're chatting and casually watching the game. Offsides flag goes up, and within a second the dude is explaining to me how offsides in soccer works. Dude, I met you at a game. My team beat yours, I was the goalkeeper, I know how that works. Edit. Really digging how people are now mansplaining why he mansplained. Never change, Reddit. Edit 2, for those of you correcting me on offside versus offsides, probably a regional thing. Every game I've played it's been called offsides, but when watching on TV I hear it as offside. It really doesn't matter. Oh man. My friend is smart. Like, I have to fact check myself before I talk to her even though she won't correct me or be rude if I'm wrong. I homeschooled with her. Her mom was a nuclear physicist and her aunt was a biochemical engineer, and when they offered to let me learn with them, we couldn't refuse that kind of education. Her whole family is smart and I was lucky enough to try to keep up with them my whole life. She is also a dancer. No attraction since she is pretty much my sister, but I know she's gorgeous. When she took her car in to get an alignment since she didn't have the equipment and she came back furious. The mechanic was trying to explain that there was something wrong with the alignment that couldn't be easily repaired and used the word geometry in his explanation. Then he stopped, looked at her, and said, "Oh sorry, I'll try not to use big words." Like, what the? You think geometry is a big word, and you don't think she knows it? Dude. Pressuring for to an obnoxious "I don't care what you want" degree. It's fine that you want to sleep with me, but hey, there is a person inside this body and they have an opinion too. For what it's worth, I might have had with you if you'd been willing to wait a few times so I could get comfortable and not feel steamrolled. I liked you when we first met, but you killed it. Yes. It sucks when you think you like someone, and they like you, but halfway through the first date they're like let's, and it kills it. I'd have probably gone for it if you at least pretended you asked me out for something besides my body. This is so important. A lot of guys don't seem to understand that our nature combined with how most girls are raised makes lots of women very sensitive to feeling used for or to feeling like guys are only interested in us for our bodies. Even if it goes well and you do get the girl, don't be the boyfriend that communicates only in terms, unless you two have talked about this beforehand and she explicitly says she's okay with it. Otherwise, this is a surefire way to make a girl feel like you only are interested in what her body has to offer. There are places on a girl to touch besides her and her. Don't be the guy that insists on touching them every time you see them, especially in public, and yes, even when you don't think anyone is looking, still don't. Hold her hand, touch her arm, her waist, kiss her forehead or cheek, etc. Just try to work in more signs of affection that don't scream "I'm only doing this because it might lead to," or "my favorite parts of you are obviously your genitals and I'm interested in nothing else." That's probably not how guys intend to come across at all, but it's often what ends up being communicated. Girls often have more body boundaries than guys, and you'll be a lot better off if you start off respecting them. Bottom line, girls like to know that guys would still want them even if they didn't have the TNA. We need to know that we're more to you than just convenient outlets. Not even sure how it came up, but halfway through the meal he starts raging about fudge packers, and how gays aren't real men, with biblical references. I didn't even try to cover my disgust, and quickly started scouting out a possible exit strategy. I guess he could sense that I was ready to flee, so he quickly backtracked, assuring me that A, don't worry, he's not really religious, and B, he's all for girl-on-girl action if I was down for that. Oh good, because that is what worried me about his comments. Left after paying my portion on the bill, dude stalked me the next few weeks trying to assure me that we had too much chemistry to let this break us up. It was our first and only date.